Coming up on Broncos Weekend, the Broncos head on the road for the first time as they visit the 2-0 Miami Dolphins.
This will be a good test for us. Good team we're playing, obviously.
Russell Wilson and the offense get set to face a tough Dolphins defense led by former Broncos coach Vic Fangio.
That first half we played was some of the best we've ever played, as a collective group. And we just got to make it two halves.
And the defense preps for the #1 ranked offense in the NFL and familiar foe, Tyreek Hill.
He possesses like a unique skill trait. Obviously, he has the speed, but his short area quickness is an issue as well.
Broncos Weekend starts right now. Hello, and thank you for joining us here in studio. I am Phil Milani alongside the Hall of Famer, Steve Atwater, and Super Bowl 50 champ, Ryan Harris. He's got his green tie on for Notre Dame.
There we go. Let's go.
We are getting you ready for kickoff against the Dolphins, and our top story this week is how do the Broncos block out the noise and just focus on football? Steve, they can't worry about this 0-2 record.
Yeah, they definitely can't. And there are going to be some ups and downs throughout every season. Really, everybody's life, you have some ups and downs, but you got to be able to focus on what's important. And what's important is following the process, knowing that, hey, we've put the work in, we know what we're doing, we know we're a good football team, regardless of the record, and we're going to go out here and show the next week we get, the next opportunity that we have.
And part of the process is how do you get better? And one of the things I liked hearing about what the Broncos have done, Coach Sean Payton is using code words instead of the long play calls. That's going to help players get in and out of the huddle, have confidence. But there were big plays, there was explosive plays, so the pieces are stacking up. They're just one win away from starting a streak.
One thing that happened against Washington is the turnover, Russell Wilson out there scrambling. It seemed like momentum completely switched after that. How do you, Ryan, let's start with you. How do you not let one bad play linger throughout the rest of the game?
Just focus on the techniques you need to be successful in the next play. And you go to the sidelines, your coaches are talking to you, everybody's asking what happened, but hey, what's the next play? Okay, this is the next play. What's our techniques on this play? What are we thinking about after that? You go right back into the game plan. That way, that negative thought stops in your mind. You can focus on what you can do to improve the situation.
Yeah, I think, one, you got to stay positive.
Yes.
Regardless of what happens, you got to be like, hey, I'm going to come back. We're going to come back as a team. We're going to be okay. Any setbacks, just leave them, forget about them. Second, you got to be consistent. You got to make sure that every single play you're running it the same way you did in practice, and have the confidence that, hey, it's going to work. It worked in practice, and it's going to work here in the game. And then you got to be resilient. You got to be able to overcome the adversities, and a lot of the things are just mental anyway. Now you may make a mistake, but mentally you got to be able to get over it and be strong enough to know that you can execute these plays the way you did in practice.
Short memory helps in this game for sure. The Broncos, though, after 2 games, are 0-2. Familiar territory, though, for Sean Payton in 2017. His Saints were 0-2. Then they rattled off 8 consecutive wins, made it all the way to the divisional round. And that's something that the Broncos are going to draw upon this week.
You got to get on to the next game. You got to make the corrections. You can't just blindly say, all right, you got to make the corrections, and then this will be a good test for us. Good team we're playing, obviously.
And what we're watching for this week is this Broncos offense going up against a tough Dolphins defense, and they're going to see Bradley Chubb out there, and they're going to see former Broncos head coach Vic Fangio. Steve, I'm sure those two guys have had this game circled for a long time.
Yeah, they sure have, and I'm not sure, because some guys, when they play against teams that they've been with, they get upset, they get super fired up, like, man, I want to destroy these guys. And other people, they're like, hey, I want to go out here and have a good game. I want to be able to connect with my guys before and after the game. Obviously, you want to win in either case, so I'm hoping it's a good experience for them.
And I'm with Steve. I mean, Bradley Chubb, he was here, he's great as a Bronco, and he's put together a fantastic career with a great contract there in Miami, has a high rating on Pro Football Focus, one of the highest for defensive ends. And I always felt, Steve, correct me if I'm wrong, but I always felt it has to be greater than the emotion. Like Steve said, I'm going out, I have an opportunity to be great out here.
Right.
Never the name, only the number on the jersey, and make the most of that opportunity you have.
Ryan, this offensive line last week gave up 7 sacks, 9 sacks through the first 2 weeks here. They're going to have to be concerned about Bradley Chubb.
Well, concerned and focused as well on what to do. What is Bradley Chubb's number one move on 3rd and 5? Usually that's different for a defensive end. You know, what's Van Ginkel trying to do? When Van Ginkel and Chubb are on the same side, what does that mean that's happening? So use the information on the film. You got 2 games now, quality film on that Miami defense. Study that film.
That first quarter and a half, the offensive line looked pretty solid. You know, they were able to develop some of those deep balls down the field. The deep ball in particular, Steve, you think that that's going to be something we see regularly with this offense?
Oh, man, I sure hope so. I think everybody goes to the game hoping we can see some deep passes. And the first game, we only had really 2 plays that were more than 20 yards, whereas this previous game, we had like 5 plays that were more than 20 yards. And, of course, the big ones were the 2 to Marvin Mims, the 61-yarder and the 50-yarder. But I think everybody loves to see the big plays. I'm included in that. I love to see the big plays, and I'm hoping that we'll get Mims more involved.
More than anything, those big plays tell receivers to stay on the football and be ready for it, right? I mean, Mims is out there getting those 2 big catches. You know, Johnson's made catches. So the team now knows as receiving core, hey, I'm going to get the ball. And Russell Wilson is a great enough quarterback that he can pick apart a defense if they make a mistake. That's when big plays happen. So now you got the confidence of the young players that they'll get the ball, and you got a quarterback who can find the mistakes a defense makes. I think we see those big plays all year.
Yeah, when you spread the love around, everybody stays engaged, and it's a positive sign. For Russell Wilson in particular, he's faced Vic Fangio a lot, 5-3 all-time facing against the Broncos' former head coach, and that's something, that experience, he's going to use that going up against this Dolphins defense.
He's a tremendous, defensive coordinator. He knows how to coach the guys up. He's one of those, coaches that are all-time greats, to be honest with you. For us, we're going to have to be playing really clean football, really good. He's going to have Chubb dropping out sometimes. He's going to have him rushing off from all over the place. He's going to have different guys moving around. But just understanding, where guys are and what they're trying to do on defense and playing a clean game.
On the other side of the ball, the Broncos defense getting set to face one of the fastest guys in the NFL in Tyreek Hill. Broncos fans know him all too well from his time in Kansas City, and not much has changed since Tyreek Hill has been in Miami starting last season. This year he already has 3 touchdowns and 255 yards receiving. For more, here's Denver 7's Troy Rank and our matchup of the game.
Obviously, it would be better at this point if the Broncos had a win and their defense was playing better. Now they go to Miami where the challenge is real. Miami, they might have the league's most explosive offense. It's centered around one Tyreek Hill. He is unique in every way. He's not quick. He's not fast. He's sudden. And here's what Sean Payton said about him, that people don't appreciate Tyreek Hill's football IQ. He understands what defenses are trying to do to him. He finds coverages and beats them because of his knowledge. So how are the Broncos going to cover him? I would suggest they need to shadow Pat Surtain on Tyreek Hill as much as possible. Now listen, it's not going to happen at 100% because the reality is they put Hill in motion frequently, so you can't have Pat Surtain running across the formation. But try to get him on the side that you want, just as you see there with Devontae Adams. Put Surtain in one-on-one as much as possible. Even when you play that matchup zone, you want Surtain finishing on the side if you can with Tyreek Hill. Why? Well, you just saw with the Patriots with Christian Gonzalez. A long, lengthy corner with speed gave Tyreek Hill problems. That's the same thing that Pat Surtain can do. He's rangy, he's big, he makes good tackling decisions. And I've said this about Pat Surtain and will continue to say it. He turns NFL receivers into Chick-fil-A. They're never open on Sunday. So put Pat Surtain on Tyreek Hill as much as possible. If you limit Tyreek Hill, you give yourself a puncher's chance to pull off the upset.
Thank you very much, Troy. Some good lines there, huh? The Chick-fil-A
Yeah, I
line.
like that.
Troy
I like
always
that.
brings it every week. But it's no laughing matter when you're talking about Tyreek Hill. I mean, this guy's got some serious wheels, Steve.
He does. He has serious wheels. We know that he's been a deep threat. He was that when he was in Kansas City, and he hasn't slowed down one bit. And he has Jalen Waddle to go along with him. We don't know if we'll see Jalen Waddle because he had a concussion last week. But I think that the best defense is going to be our offense actually staying on the field more, eating that clock up, running the ball, and obviously defense. We're going to have to get out on the field and defend him as well. But when we do, we got to make sure that we know where he is at all times. We cannot let him get deep.
And the other thing, though, the Broncos may have caught him at the right time. Tyreek Hill showed up on the injury report with an ankle. Yes, he's got 255 yards receiving with 3 touchdowns, but only had 40 yards receiving last week with 1 touchdown. Now, is he dynamic enough to make a play injured, and still be effective? Absolutely. But if there's any time you want to face a Tyreek Hill, it's when he's got a little bit of an injury bug from at his ankle, makes it harder to cut. He'll telegraph his moves a little more. So this may be the right time to catch Tyreek Hill for the Broncos defense.
We're going to take a quick break here, but when we come back, we'll revisit some Tebow magic. And we'll also show you why an 0-2 start doesn't spell doom for Denver. That's next on Broncos Weekend.
25 seconds to go in the game. Design roll to the left side. Tebow sets, throws, backside. This is going to be Fells. Fells is going to walk into the end zone. Denver touchdown. And the Broncos are a 2-point conversion away from a tie. Tebow, quarterback draw. Tebow's going to be into the end zone. And we are tied at 15.
Our memorable matchup this week, 2011. The Broncos went on to win 18-15 in overtime. And that was just the start of a wild ride that season, commonly referred to as Tebow Mania. The team that year, 1-4 heading to Miami, went on to make the playoffs, and that leads into our key stat, showing that slow start can be overcome. In fact, an 0-2 team has made the playoffs in 7 of the previous 10 seasons. We're back here on Broncos Weekend. I'm Phil Milani alongside Steve Atwater and Ryan Harris. Guys, 0-2, it's tough to overcome that, but it can be done. And it's a long season, Steve.
It's a very long season, and you never know when a team is going to make its run. They're going to win 5, 6, 7, 8 games straight, and hopefully we can get on one of those runs. So you can't get too down when you lose a couple of games early on in the season, and you got to stick with the process. You got to continue to work hard, continue to have a positive attitude. It gets difficult when you've been losing for several years. You haven't really had a winning season in several years, but the leaders on the team, again, they have to step up and make sure that locker room is being positive and that they continue to believe in this game plan.
And the key, like Steve said, work harder. It's very tough. I mean, you're fighting human nature in the NFL when you lose. One of the hardest things to do in the NFL is to lose, as we've seen the last 2 weeks, because you prepare, you try and make plays to win. You want to be great, you take accountability, you find out what you can do better, and you start putting it together. You think one game at a time. You're not thinking about the remaining 15 games or when the bye week is. You have to work harder if you're the players on the team. You have to play harder for 4 quarters, and these are the opportunities you have in front of you here on Sunday.
And I'd say one other thing, too, is that it's not like we played poorly in each of the games. You know, they've been very close games, and I thought we played relatively well. So we got to clean up a few things, especially the penalties, and I think we'll be right where we want to be.
2 losses by a combined 3 points. So, like you mentioned, they're right there. And Russell Wilson, a leader on this team, he's made the playoffs both times that he started 0-2. So it can be done.
Yeah.
That's not our bold predictions, guys. This is our bold prediction. Steve, let's hear it.
All right. Now, we know last year Javonte Williams suffered the horrific injury to his ACL. Now he's coming back. He's going to have a 100-yard.
I like it.
First 100-yard rushing game since the injury.
Give me the win on the road. Steve knows this too. Sometimes road games are the best medicine for a struggling team. You get to hang out together. You got no one asking for tickets. And then give me Marvin Mims, 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, building on last week. It is the Broncos' first road game of the season, but for a lot of these guys, they're actually heading back home to South Florida. One of those guys is Jerry Jeudy. He has big expectations for year 4. Let's go over to team reporter Sidney Jones, who's inside the locker room.
Thanks, Phil. We're here inside the locker room with wide receiver Jerry Jeudy. Jerry, looking ahead to Sunday's matchup versus the Dolphins, this offense has gotten off to a fast start the past 2 games, but you haven't had the same momentum in the second half. What are you guys going to do to try and fix that this Sunday?
This fix up all the little details and the little mistakes that we made that week and throughout the week, just to take each and every day to just get better and make sure everything 100% on point.
As you guys are looking for, your first win of this season, what's kind of been the mindset, the focus here in the locker room this week?
We just focus on each day, just making sure we execute our game plan and do whatever we need to do just to get better each and every day. So that's the biggest thing. Just focus on each individual, just focus on their assignment and their technique, and make sure they do it at 100%.
I know head coach Sean Payton said this week the challenge is going to be, tuning out some of the distractions given the record. What does that kind of look like for you during the week, Jerry?
I don't never really pay too much of the outside noise, I'm in here with these guys, working hard with these guys each and every day and throughout every week. So, just do what I've been doing every day. Just focus on the stuff that I can control and stuff that I need to focus on for real.
I know you know Tua Tagovailoa pretty well. You guys played in college at Alabama together. What makes him such a dynamic quarterback?
Tua's a very smart guy. Just knows his scheme, know his offense, know his players, and know how to read defenses, and got a great ball, great accuracy. He do all the good things.
Jerry, I know you're from the Miami area. Are you excited to head back down to South Florida?
Yeah, of course. It's going to be my first time being able to go back to South Florida, my hometown, and play in front of my family and stuff like that. So I'm very excited.
Do you have a lot of family and friends coming out? I know Pat said he has about 20 family and friends coming out.
Yeah, you could say I'm around that much too. You could say that, yeah.
Well, looking forward to it. Jerry, appreciate your time.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Phil, I'll send it back to you.
Thank you very much, Sydney. Talking about Jerry Jeudy, he's got to be a big part of this offense moving forward. How did he look in his return last week?
Yeah, he looked like he was just a tad bit tentative, and I know having a hamstring injury back when I played, when you come back, you're always afraid that thing may pull again. So in the beginning, you're a little bit cautious than he'll be this week. I think this week he'll be able to let go because he's been practicing, he's been going, he's played in the game. So I think he'll be back to close to full speed this week.
The biggest thing for me that Jerry Jeudy has to do is learn to make catches with contact. It's clear that he's in the right spot, running routes, and in the NFL, you have to catch through arms, through contact, and it just hasn't seemed like he's made that decision yet in his career. The minute he does, he's going to be unstoppable as a receiver. That's what I'm looking for from Jerry Jeudy in this game. Make those combat catches, as they call them in the NFL, and make sure you are a possession receiver and helping your team no matter what kind of contact you face.
Can they practice that in practice? Can they practice?
Absolutely. When I was at the Steelers, they practice it all the time, and great receivers do, right? They say, hey, I'm going to catch this ball off the jugs, chop my arms, hit my hip. Because you just got to mentally get used to saying, it doesn't matter, I'm not going to get a flag, even if I might, I'm going to catch this football. You saw what that looked like all the time with Rod Smith and McCaffrey. That's what elite receivers do, and that's the space that Jerry Jeudy needs to cover in this next game.
It's time for our final break here, though. When we come back after Marvin Mims' big game, is he now a fantasy steal? Plus, we'll tell you what it'll take for the Broncos to come away with a victory in South Florida. That's next on Broncos Weekend.
Mims is there inside the 15, 10, 5, touchdown, Denver!
It's a great confidence boost, but just like you said, going forward, just want to keep adding on to it, keep playing good, keep playing great, and putting myself in good positions.
Marvin Mims had his coming out party last week with those big plays and the big punt return. It's clear why the Broncos moved up into the second round to pick him in last year's draft. Let's once again hear from Sydney Jones, who has our fantasy focus.
For this week's Fantasy Focus, let's take a look at wide receiver Marvin Mims Jr. He's coming off a breakout game versus the Commanders in Week 2, where he caught 2 passes for 113 yards and a touchdown in just his second career game. He was also utilized in the run game with 10 rushing yards on 2 carries, generating 20.3 fantasy points in PPR leagues last week. Now, Marvin hasn't received a ton of targets in his first 2 weeks of the season, but he certainly makes the most of his opportunities when the ball is thrown in his direction. His 2 catches were for 53 and 60 yards last week, and in doing so, Marvin Mims became the first Broncos wide receiver since the AFL-NFL merger to record 2 catches of 50-plus yards in a single game. If he continues to play this way, we could see him earning a larger role within head coach Sean Payton's offense. Now, since the Broncos have other playmakers like Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, and given the fact that Marvin Mims is a rookie, he's most likely a free agent in most fantasy leagues, so it's certainly worth picking him up on the waiver wire this week.
Thank you very much, Sydney, back here at the desk. Ryan, you mentioned that he's your bold prediction. How do you see the Broncos using Mims moving forward?
A lot like a Tebow Samuels type of player. He had 2 rushes, some big runs. Anytime you can get him in the speed in the backfield, that's going to attract the attention of the defense. That sets up future fake motions for him. The playbook and play calls are going to get simplified because of the code words Coach Payton is using. I expect a huge year from Mims and a big game this week against Miami.
Yeah, I agree with Ryan, and also Marvin Mims also returns punts, and
Yes.
you got to take that into consideration when you're building the game plan. You can't have him with too many targets because then it may take away from his effectiveness as a returner, and that's extremely important as well.
The NFL, everybody's fast, but you could even see he's got.
Oh,
he's
yeah,
got
the
that
next level,
he's a
next
little
level
bit
speed,
different.
next level speed.
Okay, time to wrap up the show now. Let's hear some final thoughts.
Well, I think 3 things are important for us to win this game. And as I said earlier, sometimes offense is the best defense. Our offense is going to have to run the ball and be effective. That offensive line is going to have to come through the same way they did last week against a great interior defensive front from the Washington Commanders. And I also think that the defense is going to have to come up with a couple of turnovers this game because it may be a high-scoring game.
I want the offense to run the ball offensively. I'm with Steve. That's the way you win football games in the NFL. And run plays are always there. It's on coaches to find out. Are we pitching to the edge? Are we going to be doing a wham block inside, more trap motion? Are we going more zone? Is that zone wider this week? Those are the things the offensive coaching staff have to get the players to be confident in before Sunday. And then defensively, I want to see a rush-stopping defense for 4 quarters. We've seen it for 3, but in that 4th quarter, it's cost the Broncos 2 games, 4 quarters of that phenomenal run-stopping defense. I think the Broncos win.
Yeah, got to get off the field when it counts. Talking about speed and running the ball, Jaleel McLaughlin, first career touchdown last week. Maybe we'll see a little bit more of him. The Broncos have won 3 out of 4 in this matchup. So
all right, let's keep it
another
going.
Good trend there.
Keep it going.
It's an early 11 o'clock kickoff. Our friend Kevin Harlan is on the call, so it should be a great game, and we're getting excited for this one, Broncos and the Dolphins. That's going to do it for us. For Cindy Jones and Troy Rank, and us here at the desk, Ryan Harris, Steve Atwater, I am Phil Milani. Thank you for watching Broncos Weekend.